Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors could talk about their books, how they write them, how they publish them, and how they market them. You can find us here at ltveh.org. Just click on videos and you can see the show. We're also on Cablevision Channel 20 on Thursday afternoons at 3 o'clock. You can find us on Facebook. Just look for The Writer's Dream. If you want to be on the show, you can message me through Facebook or LinkedIn. I almost always get those messages. If you look on YouTube, I have probably now about 200 authors talking about how they write their books, how they publish them, and market them. And if you're interested in starting a writing career, there's a lot of good advice there. So, without further ado, I am going to introduce a very interesting guest today. Her name is Irvana, and her featured book today is Forays in France, a memorable memoir. And I am so jealous, Irvana. I will say you've also written in and around New York from the Romantic Weekend series. And you also have written a wonderful book for mothers, You Can't Do It All, with a lot of advice on how to manage being a mother, which is the
Right.
hardest job in the world, correct? Okay, so tell us about Forays in France.
Well, I am a Francophile. I studied French. I taught French and Spanish in ESL, but I've been a Francophile since I was a teen. I say in the book, but before I knew what the word meant, I was loving everything French. And over the years, I managed to get to France as much as possible. I studied at the Sorbonne when I was 19, and the book sort of starts there and ends. Last January, I returned to the Sorbonne for a class, which was quite a challenge at 86, listening to 3 hours of French literature.
Oh, God.
I did it and I knew what they were saying, but it was tough. Anyway, I what happened is that when COVID hit, my friend and I had already planned to return to an apartment in the south of France. And our rental was canceled on like COVID hit March 10th, I guess, 15th, 2020. 2 days later, I got money back. And of course, I was so old, I thought I was going to die. I'd never live through it and I'd never travel again. And all I could think of once I stopped worrying about the pandemic was France. And I started remembering these crazy things, the time I lost my car, the time a car had flames in it, the time I had this fabulous meal. And I started writing. And then what happened, I remembered crossing the Atlantic when I was alone when I was 19. And I swear I enjoyed being shut in for as long as we were because my brain was back in France. And of course, with all that time at home, I prowled through old memorabilia and I found menus from 1988, my travel diary from 1959, and all of these details. It was like the Proust taste of the Madeleine. You
Mhm.
would get a detail about what you ate at Maxime's in 1979, and all of a sudden I had a vignette. So that's how it came about. And no publisher was really interested. It wasn't not that selling You Can't Do It All was easy. There were 16 rejections before Macmillan bought it. But in this case, I wanted to write what I wanted to write. And now self-publishing is a thing. And I just decided I'm going to do this my way. And I finally self-published it.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that because all my books are self-published, and I like self-publishing because you have complete control and
Right.
you don't owe anybody anything. I mean, I don't really know if you make more money. I think it's a lot of hard work, but then I've been told by people who are traditionally published that the publishing companies, unless you're very famous, don't do
Right.
much in the way of marketing for you.
Yeah.
So you end up doing your own marketing anyway. So, how did you get started in your writing career?
Well, that was sort of interesting because I was a full-time teacher and a full-time mother.
Hmm.
And in the 80s, Uh, well, I guess it was in the 70s when my friends, the whole women's movement, teachers became lawyers or guidance counselors or whatnot. And I wanted to do something. And a friend of mine proposed that we write the book for working mothers, that women who were doing both jobs really needed a guidebook, a survival guide.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's where I started. But what happened was that when I started trying to find an agent for that book, I was asked, "Well, have you ever published anything?"
They
And
always say that.
and I said no, but my brain was smart enough to say I better get published. So I started thinking about what I knew. I
Mhm.
knew about sailing because my husband was a sailor and I traveled on boats all the time. So I became the contributing editor to Waterway Guide. I knew about eating. My husband had worked in the city, but then we moved to Bayshore in 79 from Islip, a big 3 miles, but we moved to a waterfront home. So he had a boat in the backyard. Well, he gave up commuting to New York. When he did that, we gave up going out in New York. And I looked forward to that. So
Sure.
I became a food restaurant writer for New York and I don't know, do you remember Long Island Nightlife, that magazine? For
Yes.
5 years, I wrote about restaurants in Manhattan and on Long Island for them. And that's how I started writing. It was sort of out of a need.
Mhm.
Oh, I used to write political essays for Viewpoint for Newsday. I am a feminist and an ardent feminist, but I had opinions and I presented them to Newsday, and a number of them got published, and one got published in the New York Times.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful. Well,
yeah.
that was the advice that any of the research that I did when I decided to publish my first book was that publish what you know, magazine article. Don't go for the book first of all, because if you get a few articles published, then you can say, when the agent asks that question, yes, I am published, and
Exactly.
that's a great way to start. Why did you pick? Because you have such a wealth of memories and interesting things. Why did you pick nonfiction rather than fiction?
I haven't even thought about fiction yet. In fact, I have another book, a spa book that's been on my brain for years, at the table eating and on the table getting a massage. Uh, I don't know. I hope I live long enough to think about fiction, but it just has not been on my mind.
Because what I found with my own writing is, all right, all of my mystery stories are fiction. But what I have found, and this happened to me during COVID as well, all that time locked in the house, was that I decided to write about sort of my memoirs because I grew up on a flower farm in Queens and I could
Ooh.
see the Empire State Building from where but I was on a farm. So I was living the farm life. So I thought to myself, let me just publish season by season and episodes that I remembered. And I put it on my blog and eventually I'll put it all together, but they're all factual and I don't find them as much fun. I lose myself in my fiction.
You're inspiring me. I'm going to give it a shot. At least short stories. I think should I start with a short story? I
Yeah,
mean,
you can because there's a lot of sites that accept short stories, but um,
or just
all
come up with an idea.
all these notes that you have from France, there's got to be something. There had to be some time during that time that something said, "I wonder about that, and how did that happen, and what if?" A lot of fiction is you see something that's real and truthful, and you say, "What if?"
And then you set it in places you know very well,
That you
like your
love,
settings
sure.
at Fire Island. Well, I tell you, thank you. That's all I can say because you have inspired me.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, I yesterday I was in the Air Power Museum in Farmingdale. It was on a field trip, and my last Annie Tillery is about the Avenger, which is a real plane. And there was an Avenger, a World War II plane, completely restored, signed by George Bush because that's the plane he crashed in.
Right.
And it was so exciting because I also have my book there about that. It's called The Mystery of the Lost Avenger. So, there's a lot to say about people who read and notice things. You have such a backlog of memories, and eventually a story hits you.
You know, that's it. I'm going to reread some of your Fire Island. I've read a few, and I'm going to reread some because to see how you weave in the place
Well,
with your story.
well
Yeah.
then do well, two. You could do Girl with Pencil Drawing, and The Mystery of the Lost Avenger. I think those would be the best for that.
Okay.
Okay, I want you to share, because this is your book, not mine. I want you to share your most memorable, closest, happiest memories in forays in France.
I have to say that some of them are the most recent and may be coming to an end. My girlfriend and I, have been renting a two-bedroom apartment in Cannes,
Ah,
a block and a half from the Mediterranean, a block from Rue d'Antilles, which is the normal people's shopping street where you have CVS and
mhm.
drugstores and theaters, and maybe 2.5 blocks from the market. And I have to say that one of the greatest joys of my life is waking up there and walking to the market and buying zucchini blossoms or berries or cassis or these little wonderful the green beans that are all clipped and cut and they look like stacks of wood and everything is so perfect. And going home and making a salade niçoise or something, and then going out in the afternoon and walking along the Croisette. And not with we don't spend the money for dinner at these fancy places. A few times while we're there, we do over the 3 weeks. But we'll go in and we'll have a fancy drink at the Carlton or and pay the $25 for for the Prosecco or whatever. And look at just watch the people who are wildly dressed and from all over the world. And it's really one of my favorite things. And that was what I missed at the COVID shutdown because that was where we were going. And I've had the most magical experiences. I've been to jazz at Juin where you're looking over the Mediterranean as somebody is singing. And of course I go to see the Monet water lilies in Paris. So I have countless memories. This book is like 320 pages or 340. It could have been 900. If my daughter's a book designer and she kept saying, you can't do it. It has to stop. I could still be writing it. And because there are so many wonderful memories. And not all of them are the fancy meals, or a lot of it is street food and markets and
The
little
real people,
bistros. Yeah,
the
real
real
people.
people.
Well, I
Um,
feel like a real person in Cannes. And yeah, so that's one of my special memories.
well, in reading some of the background on this book, one thing jumped out at me because it's one of my favorite things. You took uh, a train ride on the Venice Simplon Orient Express, and of course, the mystery person in me, oh, Agatha Christie. So how was that?
It was amazing. It was amazing. And the funny thing is that I just recently spoke with one of the women who organized that. And she lives in Vermont, and she's almost I think she's 6 months younger than me, and she runs a B&B there. But we traveled from Venice, and we got to Venice. Well, the train, of course, was fabulous. But we got to Venice, and I remember getting a bedroom there that was like 6 feet square. And I said in my worst Italian, non posso, non posso. I can't sleep in it. I mean, it was like in a closet. But then you get on this train, and it's like a sailboat in a way, or a
Oh
ship,
yes, I owned a
because
sailboat.
the sink comes down, the bed folds up, the everything, every moment of space is used. But on the Orient Express, it's the best mahogany and it's carved woods and it's velvet and it's gold, and the food was fabulous. And when we slept in Monte Carlo and we overnighted on the train, but when we got to Nice, for some reason the newspapers were there and they took our picture. I wish I had the date of it, but I have my picture in front of the blue train, the blue engine with the uniform. It's just everything about it. From the guy who makes your bed to the person who serves you champagne. It is, if you can do it, it's a bucket list. It's a
Oh
bucket
yeah,
list trip.
yeah. I
Yeah,
looked
yeah,
into it, but at the time I looked into it, I couldn't afford it. But I
yeah.
may do it someday. Did you go all the way to Istanbul?
No, 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 no. I went to Istanbul a couple of years ago with my friend, but we went Venice to London.
Oh, okay.
And I write when we went Venice, the train went along the Cinque Terre, right along the
Secret
cliffs
territory.
into Monte Carlo, then Nice, and then we didn't stop again until we got to Paris. And I can remember like yesterday being in Paris and watching the food be delivered to the galley on the train. And all I wanted to do was get off. I didn't want to go. But then we went to the border. We crossed and got onto a British train
Hmm.
from the border to London, and where we were eating scones and had high tea and stuff for that leg of the trip. So it was Venice to London, and
Okay.
it was magical.
Does it still go to Istanbul?
Oh yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that to
Which,
be.
by the way,
Yeah,
however you get there, I spent 2 weeks there 2 years ago. Really a wonderful, wonderful city. Yeah.
yeah. I went there because I was researching my third book, which takes place in Istanbul and then in Cappadocia, and so I was there for probably 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
What a
And
great visit that was.
which book is that?
Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys. Did you go to Cappadocia?
I did. I did.
Okay,
I
so
flew to
those
Cappadocia.
those
Yeah.
geographical geological formations are fairy chimneys. That's what they're
Yeah.
called.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
No, no, Cappadocia was also a unique, unique place in the world.
So you've really traveled extensively,
Yeah.
and when you are traveling, though, I know in this last book you self-published. So what happened is you had to pay the freight of all the traveling.
No, not always.
Okay.
I, first of all, after I started writing about restaurants in New York in 1985 or so, what happened was I was in LA where my mother and father had moved and my sister, and I got invited to visit I was writing some travel articles, and I wrote for every Long Island travel magazine, lifestyle magazine. And I get to, we're doing a hard hat tour of the Gene Autry Museum, which was being renovated at that time. And interestingly enough, there was somebody from who knows where, Texas, and somebody from who knows what, Idaho. And I'm thinking to myself, I write for New York nightlife,
Hmm.
which in New York doesn't mean much. It's not New York Magazine, it's not the New Yorker. But compared to Bamboozle, Texas, it means a lot. And so I wasn't on a press trip then, but then I started writing for other magazines. I had already started writing in yachting and sailing magazines and southern boating and all those. And then when the book was published, Ladies Home Journal did an excerpt in this one. So I started doing more and more magazines. So when I had assignments, or if I did not, I would get invitations. And for many years, I was part of the travel press.
Oh,
I
good.
mean, I've been writing about travel since before I retired from teaching in 94, and I've been writing about travel since the mid 80s. So after I retired, like my husband was, I told you, the marine business, we would drive to Florida. But en route, I was writing for Sante magazine or this magazine, New Jersey, whatever, Physicians Travel and Meeting, got many magazines. We would drive from New York to Florida, but I would do a spa story in I would do a dinner in Washington, D.C. I would do an Amelia Island spa story. I would do a St. Augustine history story. And then I would get invited. So many of the trips to France I paid for. Sometimes I'd get a free meal or a free hotel. But there are trips in forays in France where I was invited by the French government tourist office, and I was writing so much about France that I did get invited. I did a trip that I was never able to publish. One of the most exciting experiences of my life. I took a car trip from Antibes up to Grenoble on Route Napoleon, which is a chapter in my book and
Oh,
one of the most interesting trips anybody could take if you like road travel. But having done it, I couldn't publish it because it was only it was a one shot. So you
mhm,
can't write about it like, here's a place you can go and visit. Do you know what I
mhm.
mean? Because it didn't work that way. And, but a lot was self-funded, but I did a lot of press trips.
I like to shift to the other book, The Romantic Weekends in and Around New York.
Uh-huh.
6 states you did, most of them my favorite states. So, what criteria makes for a memorable romantic weekend?
Well, frankly, when I did In and Around New York, I was a travel writer, and somebody who had done a different destination for romantic weekends told me the publisher was looking for a New York metro person. And I had just come off of You Can't Do It All. My thought at the time was, and this my mother taught me, when you're young and married with children, or just married with children, or too busy careers, or crazy busy lives, you need to have a place where you can stay in bed on a Sunday morning together and have that private time. So I looked for a place that was no more than 3 hours from home. I didn't go as far as Boston. I did mostly up maybe to Providence and stuff, but like a 3 hour window, Cape May up to a little bit Lenox. Maybe there's a couple of places that were 4 hours, but someplace you could get to in a day overnight
Mhm,
or in 2 nights. That was one criteria. The other criteria was I looked for places that had an affordable inn or commercial hotel, but where there was a special Roland Chateau or a fabulous inn. So, for example, you could go to the Mayflower in Connecticut, and you could go to places which now cost $1,000 a night, but you could go there for a drink or to sit by the pool or for lunch and sleep someplace nearby
mhm.
for $100 a night. So that was another one of my criteria because I travel on my own dime in a very modest way and on a commercial professional level, like the executive who flew the Concorde, uh,
Yeah.
they're on a when they're on a okay, so what's the word when somebody picks up your tab at a dinner? On an expense account,
Mhm.
they eat one way. And when they're paying for it out of their budget, they eat another.
Peanut butter and jelly.
Exactly. Or
Okay, we have just a couple of minutes left, and I want to ask you, what was your funniest experience?
funniest. Am I prepared for that? Yes,
Well, you
it
had
was
a
also
car that blew up practically.
that was not funny. My granddaughter was sitting in the front seat
Oh,
at
no.
19. I was very stressed. And it's funny about funny experiences, but I'm going to tell you a quick experience about how I sort of got held up. And it was terrible at the time, but now it's sort of funny. The cab driver, I was late. I went to a market and I was late as I want to do. Couldn't find a taxi. So the front desk calls a taxi. The guy is taking me for the train to go for a week at a culinary event. And he stops, he pulls over to the side, and he won't go another bit to the railroad station until I give him 20 or $50. I don't remember how much it was at the time. It was too much, I'll tell you that. A week later, after my culinary week in Gascony, I come back to Gare Montparnasse in Paris. I go to the line and everybody lines up appropriately, and you get into the next cab according to your
Mhm.
line. And it was the
Oh
same
God.
thief. It was the same driver, and I had his name there. And it was like, so it wasn't funny, ha ha ha,
Yeah.
but it was an experience.
Yes. So what's next? We have a minute left. What's left? What's next? A minute.
I'm trying to promote this and I'm hoping to do well with it. And this winter I'm going to start writing, putting together my next book, which may be a lot, but maybe as I think about it, I should do my spa book as fiction. And
Ah, yes.
because I do have some stories.
That's great.
So
Thank you
I'm going
so
to give
much,
that some
Irvana.
thought.
This was so much fun. We should really do it again.
I would love to anytime. Could you, I just mentioned that people listening could go to Forays, Forays, in France.com.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much. Thanks, Linda.